Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in. I'm just doing a little light reading while I listen to one of my favorite bands. Later, I'm going to film an episode of Not Today, Grim Reaper. Do you want to come play in my space?
Remember, you are a totally normal human. You can totally do this. You're totally a human. Okay, here we go. Hey, so before we get too far into this, I need to make mention of something from last week's video. You'll recall that I estimated that I would need an 11.52 watt, 1.92 amp, 5 volt power supply. The voltage shouldn't be an issue, as I'll step it up or down as I need to during this project. And the wattage should also be okay for now, but in the end, I may need a little bit more. I'm going to be totally honest here. This is a bit far away from my expertise. And while the math was correct in my video, my explanation may not have been the clearest. Electricity is a complicated subject, so here's the bottom line. It appears that I have scope creeped this project to the point where my power supply may need to be embiggened. So we're going to move forward, adding modules slowly and checking that they are using what we think they're using as we go. I also want to say at this point that my current goal is to use the breadboard as little as possible. The more I read, the more I'm seeing that I should handle power and data separately for this project, and I'll show rather than tell this aspect as things continue. One other piece of housekeeping I want to cover before we get any deeper. I'm making this project using Agile principles, and I've been using Trello for my story carding. Since I'm working alone, there really isn't a timeline for this project, and I've skipped the sizing and sprint steps, but I'm making blockers and cards where I need outside help on tasks. And as of right now, I am opening this board to anyone and allowing people to comment if they wish. I'm happy to take constructive criticism, and I add to the board all the time. For those interested in Agile, my methodology is somewhere between Scrum and Kaizen, though again, for projects like this where I'm the producer, the product owner, the Scrum master, the developer, and the engineer, the Agile process gets a little loose. A link to the Trello board will be in the description of this video, so go check it out if you wish. So, having said all that, late in the last video, I made a life-size mock-up of the wall mount. I think it turned out okay, and making it unlocked the ability for me to start to size the Kyber crystal holder. So I was able to edit a dry erase marker holder model I found on Thingiverse and 3D print it. If that doesn't make any sense, I'll try to explain. Basically, there's a website called Thingiverse. It's for people who are into 3D printing, and people can share models and things of that nature on the website. So I downloaded this dry erase marker holder that you're supposed to use for a dry erase marker board, and editing it was actually fairly easy. I just resized it so the holes would let the crystal fall about halfway in. This took a couple of tries to get right. Actually, I have a third one here. But this is actually the correct one. But in the end, I was able to print 2 of these holders so that they fit the crystals right inside, and they'll sort of hang there. And then I actually will wrap the holders themselves in black acrylic boxes, and then there'll be a black acrylic piece across the top here, and that'll have holes in it also. And then the crystals will sit kind of like this, and they'll stand up a little bit. This maybe isn't the best way to hold it, but that's kind of how it'll look on the actual device. When I printed the one that was the right size, I used clear filament, which kind of comes out white, but it kind of gives the print a translucent quality. And I'm hoping that any LED light will just kind of bounce around in there and maybe help with some of the lighting effect. I should also say that any electronics going in or out of this thing will have to kind of go in from the sides, or maybe I have to drill out from the bottom. So when we built these little boxes, we left plenty of space to go up and down and a little bit back so wires can come out of the back. I really like how these guys turned out. I have 2 successful prints of it, so it's just what we're going to go with for now, and we're kind of keeping it. With the cardboard mock-up, I was also able to start working on the table holders, the little tables that'll hold the holocrons. I'd been thinking about how this was going to work for some time, and I think I've had a breakthrough. For a few years now, I've been following this concept of 3D printed tensegrity objects. Basically, there's this idea from the 1960s that isolated objects can be held in place with opposing tension, giving them structural integrity. Around the time I was trying to figure out this display of the holocrons, a post on Reddit kind of caught my attention. User JigglyWigglers69. This is so stupid. Why would you name yourself that? Okay. JigglyWigglers69 posted a design for a cool tensegrity table where the top of the table actually hangs from the bottom. Using a shit ton of M3 hardware, some fishing line, and a 3D print, I made one. I will link the files to the Reddit post in the description of this video, but it looks awesome. Here is my first completed one. It does appear to defy the laws of gravity, and every time I look at it, I do a little double take. It's just so cool. I had a few fails getting the print exactly right, but this is definitely what I'm looking for. I'll paint this thing black just to get rid of the printer edges, and the two tensegrity tables will mount to the main logo board using an aluminum rod, which I'll also paint black. They will require a compound bend because they're going to come out at a funky angle, but that shouldn't be too tough. More on that later. We haven't actually completed that portion of the project yet. For now, however, I am marking this part of the project solved, and it is awesome. So I was able to get the main logo cut out of MDF. Here it is. I used a friend's CNC, and it turned out great. It came out slightly smaller than my cardboard model, but that's totally okay. It's still totally big enough for to house all of the cool shit I'm putting on it, and its size does a great job of highlighting the lightsaber, since the laser sword should be, like the centerpiece. Oh, I've kind of forgotten about the centerpiece. I'll be right back. Lindsay! Lindsay!
What?
Did I take this too far?
Yeah.
Went to Disney, bought a saber, wanted the wall mount to be cool, but I over-engineered it because I'm a fool. I went to Disney, now I've gone too far.
I'm working on this project in late winter, early spring, and we had a couple of dry days in the 50-degree range, so I took the opportunity to prime and paint what I could. Here is the main back piece being painted with automotive primer. I also primed and sanded 2 scraps with quadruple-aught steel wool. I then painted one with a brush using a high-gloss red found at the hardware store. The other I sprayed with a red spray paint from the grocery store. I bet the cashier thought I was a cool Banksy spray painter guy. I mean, just think of me holding that can. So cool. A single coat of the spray paint looks better, more menacing, and doesn't show brush marks. It also dried more quickly, and I think this will be the way to go, but I need to practice my distance and spray rate some more. I was also able to get the arches, arrows, and centerpiece cut out of the plexi with the laser. This is such a cool process, and I want to thank the owner of Pine Armory for his help in all things. This time for the design of the use of his laser and CNC. I'll link his Instagram and website below. He makes a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm constantly saying things like, "Hey, I want one of those! Hey, I want one of those! Hey, I want one of those! I want one of those! Hey, I want one of those! Hey, I want one of those! Hey, I want one of those!" So here is what we have to this point. It's come a long way, and though I have some major concerns coming up, I'm in love with this so far. Even though, as I look at this design, I realize the centerpiece looks suspiciously like a butthole. So one thing that needs to be solved is how the holocrons actually sit on the tensegrity table. As I've said, I don't want them to just sit normal on the platforms. I want them to float at weird angles. So I made a design with, you guessed it, cardboard! Here are two of my initial attempts. I know I've seen what I'm looking for here. I just can't seem to name it. Basically 3 pieces intersecting to make a cradle of sorts, but the intersections are eluding me. I think I can laser cut plexi in this particular configuration, and it should work if I can get it right, but I later found out that a Rubik's Cube pedestal works well for the Jedi holocron. I wouldn't say 45 degrees is a weird angle, but I would say it's more novel than just laying flat. The other problem here is the Sith holocron. It doesn't fit. Each of the points are taller than the pedestal is deep. I don't want to make the hole smaller because it will then be less stable. So what I'm going to do here is take some measurements and send them off to the aforementioned owner of Pine Armory and see if he can have them cut in clear plexi. Okay, so no soldering in this one, but that's okay. Every attempt gets us a little closer, and we've already bitten off a lot of little chunks of this project. In the next video, I will start soldering, and we'll see if this power solution works. But who knows? Maybe you will let a little black smoke out of some electronics, or maybe I'll get a new shocking story to tell. No, that's dumb.